Getting to Nairobi town. Tunapanga kuna maji chafu kiingia town. I've just looked at my what you did record. This topic, I've tried to listen to it, but it seems there's nobody had an issue, and I don't. So to review it, this is our topic number 7, talking about medical helminthology. And basically, I introduced the audio saying that helminthology is just the study of helminths or parasitic worms. So when you hear of the word helminths, they just mean parasites in terms of worms. Helminths are trophoblastic multicellular organisms, that is, and the helminths are among the common parasitic causes of human suffering, and they are the cause of high morbidity and mortality of people worldwide. They cause different diseases in humans, but few helminthic infections cause life-threatening diseases, and they cause anemia and malnutrition in children. They do also bring about reduction in academic performance, and helminths also cause economic loss as a result of infections of domestic animals. And there is a age-dependent distribution of infections in the helminths and schistosomes. And as a result of predisposing behavioral and immunological status, children disproportionately carry the burden of schistosomes and the geohelminths. So this is part of our introduction, and in this, there are several aspects that are here for emphasis. That one, we just need to understand that helminths mean parasitic worms. Again, we need to just understand that they do bring about human suffering once there is an infestation. Like in Moranga, you understand, kuna infestation. So it's quite a menace. It may not be a worm, but it's a parasite in itself, and they can bring about anemia and malnutrition. So that is also one thing that is coming out from here, that the helminths can easily bring about high morbidity and mortality. Morbidity is illness, mortality is death, V4. So we are saying that once we have these infestations amongst the population, they can easily bring about high morbidity and also mortality amongst its population. It's going to affect people worldwide. It's not a Kenyan issue, it's not a county issue, it's a worldwide issue. So they do also cause malnutrition and anemia. Remember, when the parasites get into the system, they're able to suck blood, they're able to take important nutrients from the body, because that is what we mean as a parasite. They're feeding on the human being. They're taking the important nutrients. They're taking the place that will be occupied by food, and even depleting the body of important body nutrients. So it's only important that we ensure that we protect ourselves, and remember that we need to deworm at least after how long? Yes, after every 3 months you deworm. So that is very crucial. And in children, I think that it can affect the academic performance because of the reduced iron intake. It affects mental system, and therefore they're unable to cope well in class. That they're born poor in terms of understanding. Not that Majinga, no, it could be because of these infestations that they're in the state that they are. So what are our main objectives? We find that in this topic, by the end of it, we should be able to understand or describe the medically important elements, including their life cycles, mode of transmissions, clinical features, diagnosis, treatment, and prevention. And also, you'll be able to discuss blood, intestinal, liver, and lung flukes. Also, you should be able to understand common roundworms and also the different species of the cystids. So we do have a number of materials on this topic in the portal, and just go through the activities that are available, the quizzes, the discussion forums. Kindly engage so that we can be at par. Okay, so in this topic, we find that the sources of parasites are different, and we do have exposure of humans to the parasites that may occur in one of the following ways. One is contaminated, so that is the geohelminths, and this one is basically children they're the most culprits because you'll find them during their age when they're crawling, learn to walk and explore. They're likely to come into contact with soil, whether in our compounds, whether in our gardens or shambas, they're likely to come into contact, and as they pick whatever they pick, they're likely to put it in the mouth. So they're likely to be affected. They do have water. Remember, water has to be treated in terms of using the chemicals. Like in Kenya, water guard. I don't know. Do you know the amount that should be used in treating water when you use water guard? Maybe tell me when you meet in class. So you should use such chemicals as water guard, chlorine. You can also boil and ensure we cover this water so that it's not easily contaminated. Also, you have food, whereby you have the tuna in the raw meat. Yes, we mostly at the tap pumps. And when we talk about meat, you're talking about all types of meat. We mean we're talking about mutton from sheep, we're talking about pork from the pigs, we're talking about lamb from the goat, we're talking about camel meat. Yeah, all those types. So it's important that we take. And we find what is most common is the tapeworms. I remember there's a time my daughter used to have an outing with her father, and she's like, Mom, tumekula nyama. Then I'm like, this is that I've never seen. Then eventually I got to learn that the nyama is the mutura, because there's one time we were having some time out, and she pointed and she told me, Mom, how do you buy nyama na dad? Then noticed it was a mutura joint, and they really loved the meat. So one time she had constant stomach problems. We treated her. Every other time she had relapses. So a stool test was conducted, and it was found that she had tapeworms. So the doctor was amused, and he asked me, do you eat pork? Because these tapeworms are commonly found in pork. Then I told him, no. We rarely eat pork unless at a joint, but in the house we rarely cook pork, we rarely consume it. So akakuwa like, now where did these tapeworms come from? Because that is where this the most common source. Then I asked him, could it be possible that we could also use mutura? I said, yes, it's very possible, and I related, and I knew that is where she had picked the tapeworms from. From then, they had to change their eating habit and never went back to the joint again. What will that mean? That if we don't cook our meat thoroughly, if we eat anywhere, we likely eat maybe undercooked meat, and eventually we get infected with these tapeworms or any other form of helminths that would exist in the raw undercooked meat. Of course, meat being a protein, we need to cook it on moderate sweet to a desired with a desired style or mode of cooking or method of cooking. All right, so I mentioned the first source we are having quite a number of them. We're having the contaminated or the geohelminths, we're having water, whereby we have the Sicariae of blood flux, and also have the food, whereby we have Taenia in the raw meat. Then we do have the blood sucking insects or arthropods, as in the filaral worms. So again, remember worms, we mentioned about worms bringing anemia and malnutrition. This is the aspect, because when insects suck blood from, then we are likely to end in anemic, because we have lesser blood than what is expected of us. Then you have domestic or wild animals harboring the parasites, as in the echinococcus in dogs. So sometimes when we come into contact with the dogs, it could be as we feed them, as we clean them, or as we just interact with them, we may contract these from them. Then person to person, depending again on skin contact or whichever means, most likely skin contact, we are likely to be affected by enterobias, panicularis, and also Aminopolis nana. Then we do have the which is one cell, like the autoinfection, and as in the case of enterobias, panicularis. So they do enter the body through different routes, including the mouth, skin, and the throat. stimulation of airborne eggs. The helminths are classified into two groups. These are the nematodes or flukes, nematodes or landworms, and then cystodes are the tapeworms. So basically, the tromatodes and cystodes are the groups of the flatworms. So with the tromatodes, we shall focus more about them in our next class, which will be a final class in terms of the classwork. But we shall still engage more. Whenever you have a question, we shall still have our classes. You have quizzes. I checked through the quizzes. We shall have discussions along those lines on what you've tackled and hasn't been worked on well. Yeah, and even having time to do the cuts that I've given unto you. So the roundworms and tapeworms, I've already emphasized that it's important to do them after every 3 months. So I don't know, when did you last deworm yourself? Ensure that you deworm after every 3 months. You can encourage others out there to do what is right. Then remember now, as we were looking at the major objectives, just to understand about the helminths and how we can prevent them, how we can manage and how they do occur. So because I didn't delve much into these, I wanted us to have an overview of how helminths live, their ways of exposure in terms of human beings, how we get exposed to them. That is very major, and also understanding, or rather having an overview of the three groups. Of course, the flukes, we shall focus more on them in our next class. But for today, I would want you to focus on the roundworm and the tapeworm, that is nematodes and cystodes, and I would want you to read further on them. Make sure to notes, or rather it as a term paper, as an assignment that will carry marks that will be equivalent to your cut, because your cuts, much as it was first that we were doing through the system, I know that as I went through them, I realized that we made several mistakes. That means that we didn't click on an and actually we didn't even submit the final paper. So that has affected your grade, and I would want to give you a makeup cut. So do this as makeup whereby you are going to handle the nematodes and cystodes in terms of their lifestyle cycle, the modes of transmission, clinical features, diagnosis, treatment, and also prevention. Then I would also want, by then, you should be able to unfold or describe, discuss the species of cystodes and even the roundworms, if there are any that exist, so the common roundworms that are found within our local or within the world, because remember we said this is a global thing. Now, maybe there's an emphasis, especially in the aspect of the helminths about nutrition and also anemia. You find that most developing countries, inclusive, grappling with the problem of undernutrition and overnutrition. There's a third aspect, and that is when it's called the triple burden of malnutrition. There's a third aspect of it called the micronutrient deficiency, MDDs. So you have it that usually mal means deviation from normal. Malnutrition, deviation from normal. So in this case that we're talking about the helminths, we're likely to be talking about undernutrition, because when we talk about overnutrition, I know what you're likely to understand is right, in the sense that you're thinking about overweight, obesity, you're thinking about diabetes that results from that hypertension, you're thinking about cancers and other lifestyle conditions that will result from overnutrition. And undernutrition basically is the protein energy malnutrition, where we link the kwashiorkor, the marasmus. We talk about stunting, wasting, underweight, and all these are the ones that we mentioned that in the long term, they're likely to make children not to perform well in school, and even once they get into adulthood, they won't be very, very productive. So with the triple burden of malnutrition, you'll find that with the aspect of nutrition, it's likely to bring about the myriad effect in terms of the child not being able to pick well. Anemia is likely to set in, and that one again points us to our third aspect in the triple burden, the MDDs, because again in Kenya we do have several micronutrients that are of importance, of public health concern. I know this one you went through it in the public health nutrition, and we do have basically the iron deficiency anemia, we do have the iron deficiency, we do also have the vitamin A deficiency. amongst others, the top three usually count a lot because the effect is detrimental to the health, especially of children. Because remember, even in our opening remarks, introduction, we've said that usually children are the most affected. We finished by saying, as a result of predisposing behavioral and immunological status, children proportionately carry the burden of symptoms and the ailments. So usually in any given population, children will be the most affected with this issue on the helminths or the worms, because of how they're exposed. They're likely to eat food without having washed hands. They're likely to touch soil and contaminate themselves. They're likely to take unboiled water or untreated water, water that's not safe for drinking, that is. They're likely to consume food, whatever they find around them, and put in their mouth, even if it's not well cooked. So them being more at risk, you find that now with the anemia, because you'll find that the liver flukes or any other type of helminth, like even the tapeworms, once they've infected the system, they're likely to suck the blood from the system. Eventually, they're likely to bring about anemia, because anemia basically is a result of low iron in the blood, and that means when the iron levels have been depleted, one is likely to be anemic and will be well in school, to be in good health, immunity is lower, and the cycle goes on and on. So I would like you kindly to delve more into this topic, go through what I've asked you, and when we meet in our next class, kindly feel free to ask me questions surrounding this topic, especially on the issues that I've given you to work on, the nematodes and the cystoids, so that will there any question arise on these issues, I can be able to handle comfortably and help you settle down. So I want to hope that we shall interact further in our coming class as we hope to end the semester and eventually sit for your final exam for this semester. So have a nice time, and I hope to see you in my next class. And let me know in case there's any difficulties or any challenges that you are likely to experience. See you there.